Okay, so I'm going to discuss about a new topic, and that is copyright. So, copyright and intellectual property right, about which you need to know, and it is very crucial in the digital world because we also see that IT has already revolutionized not many sectors, right? And also it has made the information dissemination, sharing very easy. So it has destabilized the whole copyright regime. So we do have a Copyright Act. This will come under the legal understanding of the cyberspace. So you have to understand the legality of the cyberspace, the kind of activities which are going on, how far we can copy, what extent we can copy, and whether it is fair to distribute or not, what is called fair dealing, what do you mean by ownership of some of the products, services, and artistic work, literary work, cinematography work. Okay, so it is very, very essential to understand the provision of copyright. Okay, so before we understand the copyright, it is also very important to understand the IPR. What is that IPR? Because copyright happens to be the part of intellectual property right. So intellectual property right is distinguished from property right? So we do have a property right, that is right to property, which happen to be the fundamental right of ours, which was later declined. Okay, but it was one of the fundamental right to property. But later it was erased from the constitutions. Unlike the property right, when you say intellectual property right, it is actually non-exhaustible. Non-exhaustible right in the sense that when you talk about the property, you talk about the land, capital, etc. There is a possibility that it will exhaust at one point of time. But when you talk about the intellectual property, which will not exhaust at certain amount of time, at a certain period of time, it will not exhaust. Rather, with the passage of time, the value of intellectual property will grow. Okay, and hence intellectual property is important, and it is not that equivalent to the property rights that we have. We have right to reside, right to have a household. Okay, and there are some needs also, physiological needs. Based on that, we also have some rights, right? And those rights are civil rights. But when you talk about the intellectual property rights, you also need to know that the freedom of speech and expression is very, very important because intellectual property happens to be the cultural expression of one group who creates that intellectual work. So when you talk about those right of the group who creates that work, right of the group who creates that artistic work, literary work, or any kind of knowledge, you say the traditional knowledge. So it comes under the intellectual property right. You also see this traditional knowledge of the indigenous people comes under intellectual property rights, but it is a bit difficult to ensure the intellectual property right of the indigenous community. But when you talk about the traditional right, so I'm going a bit slow, straightway coming to the digital scenario of copyright. It is also important to give you a brief understanding of intellectual property right and the traditional rights of the communities. So when you say traditional rights of one particular community, or you say that traditional right of the indigenous community, then you see that their rights are considered as intellectual property rights, but there are some conditions which make their rights non-negotiable in that sense, just because it is collective in nature. If you look into the characteristics and nature of intellectual property of one indigenous community, of a traditional community, then you will get to see that their knowledge of any plant medicine or agricultural knowledge, knowledge of any herbal and plant type of knowledge, knowledge of architecture, they do have some architectural knowledge, any kind of ecological knowledge. So different varieties of knowledge are termed as traditional knowledge, which is evolving over the period of time. So this is basically a body of knowledge which is evolving and which is also generated over the period of time, is called traditional knowledge, right? And traditional knowledge is supposed to be protected by supposed to be protected by IPR, intellectual property right regime. So we have some legal provision to protect the traditional knowledge. We also have some model law to protect the traditional knowledge. But you see, it is a bit difficult to define a knowledge traditional. Okay. When we talk about the nature of the knowledge, which is not in written form, it is very intangible, not in tangible form at the same time. Even all literary work, many literary work, and even some of the activities are not developed in a material form. And when it is not developed in a material form, it is only in an idea and principle, then definitely you cannot even claim copyright, because copyright is actually based on the foundation, some concept based foundation, that any idea cannot be protected at the same time, a principle, historical fact, any kind of legendary fact. So any subject matter which is already in the public domain is considered as a common property, so it cannot be protected even, right? But when you said intellectual property right, that is also part of, you see, the traditional knowledge is also part of IPR. At the same time, by nature, it is non-material. Non-material. It is not in written form, and it has passed over from one generation to another generation. So you see that it is non-static. It is not stable in that sense. So because it is passed over from one to another generations, and it will be continuing, and it might be possible that new knowledge will add onto it, right? So in that way, there is a non-stable and non-static nature, which define this that traditional knowledge, because of which we also see that it is a bit difficult to identify it with this IPR at the same time. And we see that collective ownership of any kind of traditional knowledge also makes a kind of, or create a kind of impediments for making a claim for intellectual property rights. Because you see that when you talk about a patent, so even the intellectual property rights have got three aspects. One is copyright, right? Copyright will give the economic incentive to the person who create any intellectual work. So he can claim any economic benefit, and he has moral right to publish, reproduce, reuse, remix. So he can do anything whatsoever he wishes to do. So that is the copyright. But when you say the second aspect is patent law is there. It actually varies across the countries. Okay, it varies from countries to countries, and it is basically based on single act of inventions. And you have to give that evidence of single act and individual inventiveness is being actually taken up and treated as something which can be patented, not which is communally owned or which is also collaboratively developed. So patent is actually made for individual invention, any kind of inventiveness, any kind of inventions, or inventiveness with any object. If you can claim also, that has to be individual. And there are also different specification, technical specification, making the getting patent is very difficult. And at the same time, you also see that most of the time it is very expensive even to go for seeking patent. And that's why it is difficult for the indigenous community also to go for like asking for patent and go for like patent of any of their product, whatsoever their knowledge, medicinal knowledge, or any kind of spices that is usually very traditional they have been using. Now somebody else is using it for other dietary purpose, for even curing any kind of disease and all. So a company or medical company might claim that patent on it, and it has happened, right, on many occasions. There are numerous examples, but at the same time, you see that when knowledge is collectively produced, it cannot be patented. So that creates an impediment over asking for a patent. That collaborative nature of decision making, who will be the custodian of that knowledge, or that knowledge also keeps on changing at the same time, because new knowledge is add on to it, and there is a generation of knowledge, so it is not even written, and it is based in oral tradition. So that makes the traditional knowledge at a bit difficult to perceive in intellectual property regime. But you see that in Australia, they have actually, and we say that Aboriginals knowledge, Aboriginals are learned to, like, play with this new media and technologies, and they themselves, like, they are also made literate, they are learned to play with this media and technology, and they are also made to understand the commercial value of the intellectual property. So what happened is that most of the time we don't understand, we don't realize the commercial interest of the intellectual property. Even initially, also, if you see, we have in India, Indian scenario, in educational setup, if you see, we are not talking here about traditional knowledge. You might also take it as a traditional knowledge, basically the intellectual property. In a situation in our university, there are Nalanda University, Takshashila University, like disseminator of knowledge and information, and learning is considered as a divine activity of of sharing and also given up. So. So it is not considered as a property which can be saleable. At the same times, it is not considered as a commodity. Okay, and because of which we also see that earlier intellectual property, the concept, the understanding was a bit different from the way we understand it nowadays. So now you see this commercial intent involved. When media comes up, media definitely, even if organizing any event, definitely will look for commercial intent. So in educational setup, this might not be the case, but in any kind of organization, organizing event and all, commercial intent is involved with the organizers. Commercial intent is involved with the media. If media is publishing that event, given like publications, or even distributing that event, broadcasting that event, definitely they will look for commercial angle. That will make this intellectual property regime very, very fluid at the same times, and very complicated. And at the same times, you see, governance as well as government will always look into the legality aspect, cultural and social aspect, and the audience will always look into audience who is actually watching and getting the benefit of it, or user who is getting the benefit of any traditional knowledge, intellectual knowledge, or intellectual property, will look for what entertainment angle. At times they will look for the social and cultural angle, cultural benefit, social benefit. Okay, so you see the interest of diverse group varied, and that also makes the intellectual property highly complicated. Understanding of the intellectual property highly complicated. Okay, so it is also it is seen that there is a free rider concept. Free rider concept, that traditional knowledge is already available in the public domain, right? So that has made it taken for granted attitude for even the users, that is already in the public domain. There is no need even to claim for the right to know. And that's also makes a kind of weak bargaining, capacity and power um, for the indigenous people and the knowledge holders. So that is also one thing. So that is a part of traditional knowledge is also part of intellectual property, right? Then we have the copyright. Okay, so I'll write down those sections so it will be easier for you to focus upon what I'm highlighting, and what I'm going to discuss. Okay, then we have one more thing, is copyleft movement. Which is important. Okay. In copyleft movement, we have very quickly, I have written down. Okay, legal instrument protect the IPR. So here we discussed the term IPR, intellectual property right. Then we have discussed about traditional knowledge, what you mean by traditional knowledge, the concept of traditional knowledge. Then we have the copyright. Copyright is basically the economic right and law which will guarantee the economic incentive to the author. Um, uh, and also patent. Patent is basically that the right to claim uh, claim the benefit of any invention. Then trademark is basically into protect the investment of any company to earn goodwill and earn the name of the company. So these are part and aspect of intellectual property right. We have some legal instrument to protect the IPR. So I'm not going to discuss in detail. So you simply know and have some understanding about Barney conventions. They're basically Barney convention, that is a convention to protect the IPR and define the term and duration of the copyright. Duration of the copyright, that means this lifetime of the author past 50 years. So in India, it is lifetime of the author and 60 years for any kind of literary work. So literary work has been defined and the definition of literary work has kept on changing. Okay, so hence it is important. Some IPR issues are there, so it is important to understand. And this is also related to the IPR values, IPR issues, all copyleft movement is coming into. So these issues are overlapping issues that one give to in that the IPR complying with UN declaration. So it is very, very important because this is our property, this is our right, our human right. IPR is a human right. And hence it is complying with UN declaration. So these three instruments, one is World Intellectual Property Right Organizations, that is copyright law, which is very important. At the same time, WIPO, this is basically World Intellectual Property Right Organization, Performance and Phonogram Treaty. Okay, that is also important. Phonogram, performance and phonogram treaty. So these are very, very important because when you talk about the copyright, this is not simply limited to the literary work. We talk about the artistic work. We talk about this performance work at the same time. Work of the performance, even work of the sports person. Okay, when he or she is playing. So whether he should be recorded and some kind of imposition who will put up the conditions of his performances. So a lot of things will come. So hence this is also very important if you want to educate and understand the detail of these field provisions. Then this is important that you know performance and phonogram, and this is important if you want to know the detail. Okay. So I'm telling you that I'm very briefly describing this very brief. providing, that IPR section media cell is providing a paper for IPR. So simply getting you familiarized with this IPR regime, I am taking this class so that you can have some understanding about IPR and copyright. But we do have a full-fledged course on IPR, as I have already told you. We have a full-fledged course on IPR. Okay, you understood? So first is the concept of IPR, that is understood. Second is the intellectual. Second is traditional knowledge, okay, which is one aspect of IPR. So understanding the traditional knowledge, that is the body and entity of knowledge, which also like generated over the years and passing over the years from one generation to other generation. Then I have also told you some of the characteristics of traditional knowledge, which is important. We also have a model law that was actually made by UNESCO as well as Pacific Island community for the inhabitants, and this model law actually describe the protection of the cultural expression and intellectual property rights of the indigenous community. So when you say cultural expression, let me tell you that this is basically a folklore or living tradition or functional tradition rather than some of their historical past. So it is basically talking about the protection of their living tradition, protection of the folklore. Okay, so their folklore, if somebody is recorded without their consent, so definitely it will lead to violation of this copyright at the same time. Okay, so there are some instances given. So this model law describe the protection of cultural expression of those indigenous communities, and they are the one who can reuse at the same time. They can adapt, they can translate, they can remix, they can distribute their folklore, their traditions, and all their cultural expression. And it also defined the traditional knowledge at the same time. That is basically two sections are there. One is traditional knowledge, another one is cultural expression. So traditional knowledge in terms of the medical knowledge, agricultural knowledge, there's herbal knowledge, there's architectural knowledge, ecological knowledge of the indigenous community, which are to be protected by the model law. Okay, so that is one thing. Then we have that copyright, as I have already told you, that the copyright, it is a right which we can claim that we have prevailed upon that right since ancient time. So this is not something very new and come after independence, but the concept of copyright was there when we had this law of Manu, we had this Arthashastra. Then we get to see that concept of copyright was prevailed upon. Even you see that when it is seen that Brahmin has the prerogative to recite upon, and they have the sole right over the rituals, the scriptures is also kind of intellectual property right they claim. Okay, so in South Asian civilization, you actually see that this copyright is not something very new, but we had copyright different scriptures like you see this Arthashastra and well, as well as this law of the Manu, which was like in a pre-Christian era, right? Had some mention about the and intellectual property rights and how codes of war and peace were disseminated and distributed at the same time. Okay, so that is also a part of intellectual property right. Huh? So it is not something very new in Indian context. During British period, we get to see that 18th century, we had a copyright act. It was passed by 1847 in order to create a literary enthusiasm among the Indian masses at the same time. So that copyright was meant for the author of the book. But we see that copyright was also carried out and it is existed till 1918 and again till 1957. Prior to that, by 1958, we had another copyright, Indian Copyright Act came in 1957, which actually uh, gives the, the, the commandments of copyright, how we can claim copyright. So there is also a copyright registration office, so we can go to that office. You can also claim for copyright. But once your work is being published, no, what getting published, you can automatically your work will be copyrighted and you can claim copyright. Okay, so that is one thing. So when you talk about this copyright, so it is very tricky issue at the same time. So it is not about the literary work. It will not define only the literary work. It will also define the artistic expression. You see art and the painting, sculpture, any kind of photograph, images. It also includes the graphic arts at the same time nowadays. And uh, any kind of graph it will also include. So and cinematography, that is also part of copyright at the same time. So literary work, when we talk about the literary work, initially it was limited to the quality of the work, that book, even the thesis and the research. But later, by 1984, we get to see that the computer program is also integrated as a part of literary work. So any computer program that you see this calculation, arithmetic calculation, are also part of this literary work. Okay, so but initially it was not a part of literary work. Huh. But in educational setup, if you try to evaluate the copyright, if you see the scenario of copyright in educational institution, because we are the one, we have been violating the copyright a lot because of the greater interest of the society. And when you talk about this copyright, there is also a condition which will also talk about the balancing the copyright. You cannot even talk about you cannot think about taking away the moral right of the publishers, because it is the moral right of the author as well as publishers, which is often transferred, to claim upon the right over the work which he or she has produced. Even it is more about the moral and economic incentive, moral and economic right of the author, which is the derivative of his own intellectual labor, right, for which he can claim any kind of economic incentive. And claiming economic incentive is also a kind of moral right. But at the same time, you see that public interest also involved. That dimension will always look for the benefit over the over the existing resources and the property. So there has to have a balance in terms of protecting the moral right of the author and also protecting the social interest and moral interest to encourage the human development and also growth of the society. So there are numerous instances we often seek for understanding the ownership of the right. So when we talk about the ownership of the right, who is basically the owner of any kind of right? Even we are producing a program, that who is owning? Even the organizer is owning, the one who is financing is owning, performer is owning, who is owning it? So there are a lot of like nuances involved in understanding the copyright of this work. Or even the one who is training, he is the owner or she is the owner who is owning any kind of performances or any kind of artistic activities and artistic work, art, craft, etc., etc. So in that case, you see that copyright happens to trigger some of the issues. So in educational landscape, even in general scenario also, when you see a literary work which is created by a journalist in course of his employment in the news organization, cannot even claim for copyright any kind of literary work that will be claimed by the organization itself. So any kind of photograph you have even clicked, or a videography you have developed during the time of your service in one particular organization, if you are paid to do so, you cannot even claim to have a copyright over it, right? So, but if you are doing it driven by your own interest, own choice, you have put your mental, intellectual labor capacity in it, and mental, intellectual energy in it, physical energy in it, so definitely you can have a claim upon it, right? If you are not doing it for sake of money or doing it for someone else for sellable purpose. Okay, and then in terms of any kind of report which is made by international organization, report as well as literary work of any NGOs and all, they have the claim over it. Then government has the claim over it. Public sector understanding have a claim over it if they publish any report, any document, and so on. Okay, so hence ownership happens to be one particular issue. Even in educational scenario, it is very very tricky issues. Copyright happens to be very tricky issues. IPR happens to be a tricky issues because you see that every day we seem to violate this copyright every day, right? Because you see that there are a lot of adaptations, a lot of sharing of these materials, and without even taking the consent, without even taking the authorizations. And this is basically for the greater cost educational interest, but at the same time, so we are also sharing, distributing, disseminating informations which are copyrighted, right? And hence it is very tricky issues at the same time. And as I've already told you that literary work, the definition has been broadened. It will include the questionnaire. It will include any kind of graph, table. You're making the questionnaire, that will also be a part of literary work. Your thesis, your dissertation will be a part of literary work. And then any kind of table, graph you are making, that will be a part of literary work. So I'm making a notebook, any kind of notes and courseware I'm developing, part of literary work, right? So the definition has been extended a lot. And in educational setup, it is also important to identify the factors which will make the whole regime very complicated. It is very, very important to identify, make the IPR regime complicated at the same time. But you see, when you talk about the copyleft movement, this is also very interesting turn to the whole copyright issue. Now we are talking about open access of the literary work, artistic work of uh, the even any kind of work which is being created by the author. So open access means having control over the share, distribution, adoption, remix, reuse, and retention of this work. Okay, that is what is open access. So it is actually founded on the free software movement. So open access, that philosophy, which can be conceptualized as the giving access to all, or making allowing open access to the scholarly resources and also academic resources, and as well as the software, which is based on the free software movement. Free software movement will has actually made the software code available for modifying. So when we talk about the proprietary software, software code is not even made open, right? We don't know the software code, we cannot even modify it. But free software movement allows to make the software code, like that modifiable. Okay, modifiable, it can be shared also, and it can be corrected, so according to the needs, so you can understand and interpret the software better. So the philosophy behind is that when a software code is being shared with you, so you can interpret the software better than one which in which the software code is not shared. I'm talking about a computer programmer. So definitely he could interpret it better. That the software could be interpreted better. The nuances of the software, these merits and demerits of the software could be interpreted and could also be changeable at the same time according to the needs of the customers, needs of the client. Okay, so it is open access movement actually based on the free software movement, but it is not license free at the same time. There is a license, and that is called this is called GPL, that General Public License, which is supposed to be held, and that is also part of the Creative Commons. Have you heard of Creative Commons? CC is there. So CC is basically an open access. It's an open access movement, Creative Commons. So making your resources openly available. Let me tell you that it is not anti-copyright movement. So the kind of copyleft movement is not anti-copyright movement at the same time, but you are structuring the open access. You are structuring the resources for openly accessible. So that is the philosophy of the open access and copyleft movement. So when you talk about the CC Creative Commons, so making your resources created by yourself, your resources, in the sense that your work, your the authored book, authored paper, um, any kind of literary work, artistic work are open, are made open for even sharing, for modifying, and even for non-commercial purpose, then you see that you are basically a creative license holder. Even when you are offering something through YouTube. So you could also manually incorporate the Creative Commons license. Even in website also, if you are trying to distribute your work through website, that is also one platform through which you can distribute your work, right? So your own work could be distributed. You can make your own website. It is very easier nowadays to make a website, right? Through Wix.com, you can make a website, and it is easily, freely available. If it is made free, there is no issue of copyright. So definitely you can make a website. So until and unless they provide the license to you, and at the same time, license is also based on, like, some penny, matter of penny. You need to, like, pay something to continue even the license. Huh? So that commercial intent is always available in terms of copyright at the same time. So you see that you can also run your own website. You can publish your own work at the same time, having a CC notice, having a CC notice, and giving a CC notice. Meanwhile, you can say that this work is being licensed by Creative Commons by NA, NC, or ND. So there are some specification. Let me tell you, in Creative Commons also. So Creative Commons is basically making your resources available in public domain, uh, or making it shareable, making it modifiable at the same time. But there are conditions. You can simply uh, make it available in the public domain, and you can restrict even uh, for commercial use. You can restrict the commercial use of the resources. You can restrict the derivative work which you could come out from the resources. Okay, that could be done. That could also be controlled by you. So you actually facilitate a control access to the resources that you develop. So having a control access, giving a control access to the users and commoners to the resources that you have developed. So it is all about identifying a different structure of copyright. So it is an alternative to copyright. This is not an anti-copyright. So at the same time, you can define how your resources should be used. You can define by way of some of the types of those licenses which are available. Your also Creative Commons. Creative Commons CC license. There is a CC by CC by that kind of liquidity. There is also another. Later, even I can, yeah, I can open it eventually. And the CC and C and C. You need to see CC line. And B is basically stand for by. This is usually for by. And C is these symbols are there. You might have seen. So I'll also show you if it is there. Definitely, it will be there in this that CC license. The symbols are there. Okay, there's a by symbols. By symbols is a symbol of man, which is there. That means you are making it available for anyone to edit, modify, and share that document. So it is less restrictive regime of CC. So you are making it less restrictive in terms of uses of your work. Okay, that is CC. Then CC, you say assay. Assay is Sarah-like. So you are making your resources, your contribution available through any platform, which can be shared under the similar Creative Commons license. So if followed the similar terms, it can be shareable. If it is not followed the similar term, it is not shareable. So there is a license which also available like equal sign. So that is also shareable. Okay, not shareable. This one, not equal sign. This is what is that C, that that ulta C. That was. Then we have that another one, non-derivative. So you can allow to have a non-derivative work. When you say non-derivative work, means suppose you are making a documentary, you can license it under CC, ND, uh, by ND and C, or you can also simply remove the by or ND as like NC essay. So when it is like an essay, it is shareable. It can be shareable, but your documentary portion cannot be used for any other purpose. So there cannot be any kind of derivative work from your work. Okay. So you can restrict the access to the content that you are making available for audience. Okay, and then what you can do, that non-commercial. So many a time we can also put a condition that the work which can be modified also, which can also be shared under the similar term, but it cannot be used for commercial purpose. You cannot even sell it to earn any profit out of it. Okay, so like that kind of condition, so you could also make even in a YouTube also what you can do. It is available. The CC license is already available. CC BY is available in YouTube, even if you make content. So CC BY is available, and there in the YouTube in the video itself, you can incorporate the license sign. Okay, that's CC BY, SA, ND, like that way. No derivative work can be made because this is solid, but this is made open. This can be shared number of times. This can be shared innumerable number of times to make it popular or giving it a publicity. So your work can be shared, even under the similar terms, but there cannot be any derivative work. So that can be made that no derivative work. And this cannot be used for any commercial purpose also. So you can simply put that CC license. So there are some symbols. This is all about like representation of the extent of excess. So you can have a control over the excess. You can control over the excess by another one. So you see that it is very very interesting to understand also why you are contributing to Creative Commons, why you are contributing any resources to a public domain, why you are keeping it public. It is all about keeping your own work, literary work, artistic work public, right? So you, when you are keeping it public, that means uh, you have availing the negotiability content, and you have already understood that these resources are for the public and this is owned by the public at the same time. Okay, and also you see that what might be junk for you or someone else may be a gold for another. Okay, so that is also another principle and a motto. This might be junk for someone, maybe gold for another, and hence it is made open access. And at the same time, you also see that um, there are other kind of like restrictions, like the libre and gratis open access are there. Hmm. So to certain extent, green open access, uh, gold open access are also there. So I'll discuss about it later. We have some time, but still. You have understood CC license? It is already there. Or if you might have known also. How many of you actually know about CC license? Where is the keyboard? Where is the keyboard? this, no? System. Yeah, yeah, it's fine. I don't know if it is allowed. You will be seen. Choose a license. Okay. This will ensure your right to retain, right to publish, right to remix. Hmm. So when there is serialike, there is a right to remix. But when there is Andy, there is no right to remix availed for the. It might take time. Okay, so this is a part of copyleft movement at the same time. Okay, and many news organization also they started availing the license to making their archives available for public interest. Okay, as I have already told you that there is a tension and contention available between the right of the owner as well as the societal interest, public interest, because society also want uh, wants to get benefit out of any kind of literary work, artistic work for their human development, human growth. Okay, so we cannot even simply thinking about prohibiting all the copyrighted work, so which will create an obstacle and a bar to the human development and growth. Okay, and hence copyleft movement is another milestone, and through which even BBC is licensing their archived, making it available. Different musicians, I forgot the name of those musicians, whose musics are also available under this copyright. So you cannot remix, but you can even listen to it. You can share at the same time. So this is an alternative to copyright. At the same time, when you are talking about P2P network, P2P network will make the copyrighted songs are available. So it is quite easy to download the songs and also remix, modify that song and resell that songs. Even software, in terms of software, we have the resellers, we have the counterfeiters. Okay, so they have who try to violate the copyright at the same time. So counterfeiter, they will make a fake version of the software, making it available. Right. At the same time, reseller, they will also sell it, and make it available for the users, consumers. So this is also a kind of copyright infringement and violation of the copyright. And but the thing is that at times high price will not allow us to buy any software, huh, buy us any even literary work at times. You see, that is also one way to restrict the access of any literary work by putting a very high price on it. So restricting the access and making it coming into public domain. So this is a very crucial part. So hence people will try to find out some of the circumvention effort or medium through which they can get access to the copyrighted material. Right. So here you also get to see that what kind of license you actually see. Oh, license follow the spectacle. Oh, here there is a so you get Creative Commons in Wikipedia. Even Wikipedia materials are also run under Creative Commons. People search for Creative Commons, non-commons. License list are there. So I'm not advocating for going through license list are there. CCO license. CCO means CCO 0. That is a 0 license. There is a license list which is there. So many license lists are there. You don't have to go through this. Wait, I'll share some material. There are 6 different type of creative. This is important. Non-commercial, serialike, and attribution. non-commercial. That is a Creative Commons NC 4.0, 2.0, like that, no derivative. Okay, 6 CC licenses are there. And you can also find out which one is more flexible. So in any website, now you're also evaluating the interactivity of the website. So you need to find out, even you can find out the CC license. It is content are available, content in available on what terms, on what conditions, whether it could be modified, it could be taken, and it is completely restricted. Okay, so that could also be seen. This is a part of interactivity at the same time, right? So whatever we are discussing today and in other classes are part of interactivity at the same time. You see, the end of understanding the interactivity and broaden your understanding of interactivity at the same time. Okay, so here you will get to see 6 licenses are there. I'll also provide you some material. Okay, apart from this, what we see is that, okay, briefly I'll discuss about this interactivity. Or sorry, around Mano sir, you take the class or not? Sorry, not okay. I'll continue then. Okay, okay, this is fine. You understood? Okay. Then regarding that assignment today, maybe we can continue taking the presentation if you are prepared. And if you're not prepared, then you have another 1 hour to prepare. After this by 11:30 also I can come and see your presentation. But what we are going to discuss now, I'm going to discuss with you, is that in understanding the interactivity, it is also important to understand the responsiveness of that website. Okay, so we have different types of website. We have like responsive website, non-responsive website, static website, dynamic website. Okay, based on the layout, based on the degree of participation that it holds for users, based on the capability of multi-gesture element, based on the uh, enabling different kind of viewership at different devices. So we need to find out the website design and the layout. So some websites are very static. So earlier websites are very static. So we did not have any kind of like feedback mechanism. So we cannot, as a client, as a user or customer, I cannot even alter, modify this like website, and even cannot communicate. This website cannot even address any kind of communication between two users. So static website needs a programmer to develop at the same time. It is also less expensive. It is a bit cheap to even develop. Okay, but at the same time, it lacks different participative features, participative interactive features. If you see, so when you say dynamic website, static website is the very foundation kind of website, very basic and fundamental website. And then we have this dynamic website. When you say dynamic website, it has different provision of interactivity at the same time. So you have e-commerce site, these are dynamic website. So you've taken a dynamic website if you have taken an e-commerce site. And most of the institutional website are actually static website. Like Tezpur University website is actually a static website. So we do not have a dynamic provisions. Okay, but you see, in e-commerce site, there are autoresponders are there. E-commerce autoresponders. There are also responses which will automatically come. The shopping cart software is also there. Then also you see this. There is a CCI script which is there, and that also facilitates the transactions and all. So that has made the whole website highly dynamic. Then we have responsive and non-responsive website. So dynamic website not necessarily will be responsive. In order to make a website responsive, what you need to do is to make it mobile friendly and having a mobile experience. So having different version of the website to suit the need of the viewer. Okay, so viewer have different devices of different screen sizes. Suppose mobile phone has 370 into something, but 375 into 667, that dimension is there, mobile screen. And this website screen dimension is different, like we have 1024 and 978 dimension, like that way. So dimension of height and width for the website will be different from the dimension which is set for mobile phone. That screen dimension is different. So to make it mobile friendly, to make any website mobile friendly, you need to use a command. Basically, I'm not talking about programming language. Basically, what is done by programmer is to use a media query into the cascaded style sheet, that is CSS. We have CSS, cascaded style sheet, which is used for responsive website. They use a media query to make the dynamic changeable. And which is also viewer friendly at the same time, and they do have different experience and understanding of the viewers devices the same time. Even through cookies they collect the information about the whole device dimensions, device height, width, everything, and making that website device friendly. Okay, so you see that in responsive website, you tend to avoid this irrelevant content. In a website, at times, a lot of irrelevant contents are also there. News website, you get to see. Even many a time, ads are irrelevant for us. We try to skip those ads. But if there is no skip option, so that is also create, and that will create an abstraction for interactivity, right? So if there is no this option, no skip option, so skip to content, some content are there that is coming again and again, but you want to like simply avoid it. So if there is an option like skip to content, so definitely that will enhance the interactivity, skip to content. Okay, so that is also a bit responsive. And at the same time, when you talk about responsive, basically we see that making a website mobile friendly or having this website experience can transport to or transport to mobile experience, that is a responsive kind of website that we see. And we also see that uh, we talk about adaptive features, like there is a multi gesture features are there, that is multi finger gestures are there. Multi finger gestures different, we have to earlier with the mobile phone you have to use two three that fingers to manipulate and even negotiate with the content. So now there is only one or two fingers which are also there, so through which you can zoom in. That is also part of adaptive features. You can zoom in like that. A two finger gesture is there, so you can zoom in, zoom out. That is also another kind of interactivity in terms of responsive website. So you can see, and responsive website will always um, ignore or even you say delete or making it avoidable to the users those irrelevant kind of content. Irrelevant, suppose you see hovering technology was preferred initially when programmers designed the website, so hover the content. So hovering, even links are also, hyperlinks are used, that is all about hovering the content. So in responsive website, not necessarily you will get to see that the content are hovering around. So sufficient content are there, and you won't get to see menu bar also. So there is also a targeted action for generating a menu bar for responsive website. So make it at the same time mobile friendly. Okay, so these are also some of the interactivity which also come along with this website. When you study, if there is a responsive version, then you mentioned about the responsive version, because it is a bit tedious also to make different websites, having a different kind of design at the same time. So it is very, very expensive to have a responsive version. So a small scale business will definitely not have a responsive kind of website. And for that also, a business corporations which are developing a website have to generate content and information about the user through cookies to understand the device height, width, screen, etc. Okay, so this is also another part of interactivity. Then let me tell you that the web accessibility initiative is very, very important. What is that web accessibility initiative? This is a part of interactivity at the same time. You see, the WWC Worldwide Consortium has innovated that web accessibility initiative for those who had hearing impairment, who had this dyslexia and cognitive impairment, and also you see that any kind of that eye related, that is sight related problem. Okay, so they have incorporated some of the assistive technology, and they also recommend using assistive technology, use of assisting technology by the website developers. This assistive technology like speech recognition technology. So when you are unable to write, you can simply that speech synthesizer is also there, so you can give a speech command, and slow sound is there, so which will make the video content, any kind of like no text content, visual. Slow sound is also assistive technology for those who cannot even read, so making it easier for him or her, making the text content that is also visual for him. At the same time, we have that dictionary inputs are there for first typing, the predictive dictionaries are there, right? So we also have some of the keyboard enabler. So and also there is a that desktop keyboard is also there. No, that is also another kind of assistive technologies. No? So different assistive technologies are also being integrated as a part of interactivity. So it will provide and enhance the interactive dimension of any website, and to make it friendlier for those who have cognitive impairment. Cognitive impairment in the sense not everybody will interpret any kind of like knowledge which is available at equal pace. So to make it friendly for each and everyone, this assistive technologies and these inputs are very, very important. Transcript is very, very important. So giving a caption along with a photograph or a video. So giving a caption. So giving like two provision to understand the same text. So subtitles are giving, sometimes some there are softwares which will generate the subtitles. When there is a video, automatically subtitles are being generated. Okay, so any kind of like video subtitles generated, or even that text input are generated automatically. So that kind of provision is there. Braille, and, that is also another provision which is part of that assistive technology for those who have visual impairment, you know. So that is a part of web accessibility initiative. And also you see that when you talk about amplification of the content, I'm talking about the adaptive features, making adaptive features much more common and easier. Even adaptive itself is all about user friendliness, okay, for users. Okay, so that is also a part of understanding the interactivity. So various countries have already like developed, and they have already implemented it web accessibility initiative, but not necessarily each and every website will have some kind of implementations taking to the commercial intent. And also it is suggested that you are not supposed to put two links very close. Links are supposed to be that is at a distance, so that there are some people who have some kind of limb related problem, physical problem. They cannot click the link twice or thrice or lead to a different pages, so links are supposed to be kept apart from each other. So that is also another kind of philosophy. So there are a lot of like features which are being highlighted in the web accessibility initiative. Not everything is important, but you simply understand what do you mean by web accessibility initiative. Not every even website will go for web accessibility initiative. They even command that web accessibility initiative commanded that that the text link and video link should be enlarged one, so that it could be viewed easier. So, but you see this NDTV and other website, many websites use a smaller size of like in text, even to incorporate more and more content in one particular page. So you will be studying everything in terms of content also, whether it is sufficient to suit your needs, your your understanding what you are actually looking for in the content will suffice your need or not. So this is important. And quality of the content, it is also important. So, okay.